The final season of Stranger Things just ended a while ago after 10+ hours of runtime. Viewers are left with one overwhelming feeling, which is utter betrayal. The show that once redefined streaming television went out in one of the most pathetic ways imaginable. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we are just about to expose why Season 5 of Stranger Things wasn't just bad, but it was genuinely awful. The Rise. First, we need to understand that we wouldn't care about Stranger Things ending if it weren't for one simple fact, which is the first season. The first season is legitimately one of the greatest television seasons ever produced. The writing was impeccable. Every single character had a function, and how they reacted to these strange occurrences felt like unique experiences with many storylines that made us feel way too invested in the storyline compared to Stranger Things Season 5. It was genuinely creepy when needed, and there was a lot of fun when we wanted, along with dramatic moments that felt earned instead of being a melodrama-induced approach infecting the final season. But most importantly, the mystery element gave just enough intrigue while leaving plenty in the room for our imagination and for YouTubers to debunk what was actually going on. We didn't know about Eleven's powers, the Demogorgon, or the Upside Down, and these are some of the elements that made the whole story so scary. But turns out, when you over-explain every single detail and spend countless hours in the monster's lair without danger, the monster just stops being scary, and that is exactly what happened. Fast forward a decade, and the show hasn't just lost the magic, it has become a parody of itself. Stranger Things Season 5 is just a shadow of what Season 1 used to be because, starting with Season 4, most main characters no longer serve any function. However, the writers seemed allergic to killing off anyone the audience might have liked. This problem started in Season 1 when Steve was originally supposed to die, but the Duffer Brothers liked Joe Keery way too much, and by Season 5, the show continually added new characters with plot armor so thick that you could see an invisible force field around them, unwilling to die. Even the likable killed-off characters like Eddie Munson were detrimental because they took screen time off from the actual main cast that we had spent seasons on. Imagine if Eddie's sacrifice belonged to Steve or Dustin. They would be genuinely shocked. Instead, this would genuinely shock us instead of being predictable, and now we're at the final season, where all bets are off, right? No need to keep the characters alive for future seasons. The stakes have never been higher. However, that is exactly what the producer didn't do. They went in the opposite direction. Soap opera.
Would you like to join them?
Here is exactly what happened. This show abandoned its horror roots completely, leaning into pure soap opera writing. The upside is no longer threatening. Last season established that travelers needed to avoid touching vines because they would alert Vecna through the hive mind. But in this season, characters were running around, shouting in the background, walking wherever they pleased, like they were not even afraid of anything. They would even stop almost exclusively in pairs to chat about feelings, in a desperate attempt to capture the natural drama from the first season. But at this point, it felt poorly timed. To feel satisfying tension released, there must be actual tension. Yet in the 5th season, there was almost none of that, because characters were never in genuine danger. Our main villain is absent from the main cast interactions most of the season, never establishing himself as a genuine threat. The show also showed us, and the show basically wanted us to care about random kids' Vecna targets when there are already far too many characters in the film. Killing main characters would solve that problem, but we can't do that because it might upset people. As we go towards the upside-down scenes, this feels like a melodramatic argument that resolves itself in 10 minutes. Demogorgons are also non-existent, except for the one we see early on and never again. The massive bat that came from that went into Season 4 vanished completely. Demogorgons and Demodogs are also no longer a threat because they will run past the main characters or walk slowly towards them. The hits are not as fatal unless you are a soldier in body armor. Now we ask you the question. Is it too much to ask that even D-list characters like Mr. and Mrs. Will Wheeler die? They have no real function after surviving. Anyone could have put that explosive in the dryer. Killing these characters might provide intense development for characters like Nancy and Mike. Their bond would be challenged and strengthened by the trauma they have been through, giving genuine motivation beyond, "he is the bad guy." Even the smallest deaths would build actual tension. But if the show won't be at Season 3's level of fun, where we fought flesh monsters in neon malls with fireworks, at least they should pretend that there are stakes when they want to lean into big moments that are pure style but zero substance. 10 hours going to waste. Each season gets longer with fewer cuts than should have been. This season took 10+ hours with dramatic moments that left no genuine impact. The entire season felt designed from TikTok clips with the slowed, indie pop, over-emotional moments, while the action scenes were epic but seemed too social media-oriented. We can also see that there was this one-take Demogorgon scene that looks cool, but emphasizes inconsistent power scaling. Vecna is supposedly stronger but non-threatening enough that the military built an entire fortress in the Upside Down and hates humanity. Yet the scientists who tortured him set up camp in his backyard inside the Upside Down. How does that even make sense? Almost every dramatic scene fell out of place, with characters pausing to discuss feelings in scenes that were stretching way too long, and ignoring the fact that they should have been in danger. It looked straight from a TV show like Scooby-Doo. The fight between Dustin and Steve is particularly the case here because it felt completely out of character. It was somewhat justified for the grieving Dustin, but Steve is just uncharacteristically mean just so that we can experience one of the laziest secret room reveals, where two people are just arguing with each other while trying to destroy each other. The cringe here was unbearable. The fight only exists for room discovery, and tensions immediately revolved to the next scene, which amounted to nothing. Then there's also the Twilight-level subplot. That was a complete waste, going nowhere. Nancy doesn't need to end up with either guy for the story completion, but none of these three had a purpose outside that romance subplot. This includes Jonathan's case, especially because he hasn't had any actual stakes since Season 2. All this just shows how far the show has fallen. Retcon. According to the Duffer Brothers, this was always planned. They have mapped the story from the beginning. This is obviously false, given all the retcons. Vecna's addition in Season 4 was smart because they made a humanoid villain as Eleven's death, but utilizing him properly without breaking everything before solving what seemed impossible. Vecna clearly wasn't planned in Season 1, which was a simple monster story with one creature and no hints of others. But as we get deeper into the villain details, all the mysteries go away. The final season claims massive walls surrounded the Upside Down at Hawkins this entire time, and we should just accept it. There are too many inconsistencies throughout the season. Season 1 was no longer a chance encounter with scientists accidentally tapping into another dimension. This was always Vecna's plan, except the plan is absurdly convoluted. Vecna even kidnaps kids, but not many. Later, he only needed 12. He used the Demogorgon to kill people while keeping Will alive to spread the hive mind tunnel because Venka just couldn't do it himself. Then there's the Flesh Mind Flayer monster, which also wasn't part of the plan but was more of a side quest. His real plan needed 4 sacrifices, which he killed telepathically by breaking their bones. Then he opens a new portal and wins. In his final plan, he needed 12 kids to merge souls. Not over, world and upside down, because the Upside Down was actually just a tunnel between dimensions this whole time. There has always been a wall. We're just supposed to pretend that there is one. He wants to bring the less interesting abyss to our world. The story also suggests that we need to pretend that Vecna existed the entire time, but we never noticed, and that is absurd. Then the show ignores its own rules, which is the importance of avoiding vines, or how the atmosphere used to be toxic and nearly killed Hopper from sports. None of this was actually planned. If they were smart enough, They would have shot season 4 and 5 back-to-back before the actors aged out. Late 22nds, adults pretended to be teenagers, and the season 4 cliffhanger couldn't just be followed up on. The 4-year gap killed the overall hype. Writers reset everything to adjust these children who look like basically adults in the finale, couldn't be built up properly, and they had spent an entire final season rebuilding the hype. The massive rift in the town center is covered up now. It might be important later, but not really. Season 4 just set the stage for the finale, and the final season could have been the pure finale with no fat or waste. Maybe it could have been a big movie, but this show doesn't want to be rewatched. They want you to binge it on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Vecna's hype dropping off.
Don't cry, Chrissy.
Then again, we spent time with Holly and Max in Vecna's mind, exploring his fears and backstories. However, all that hype was for nothing. It revealed that Vecna is a mind flayer's pawn, too. He wanted to be good, but he could never be because he was manipulated to a whole other level. That is just wasted time. And when we see Henry's origin, it just makes him less intimidating. We knew enough about his danger, but focusing on his fear and trauma makes other villains seem softer than they wanted to. Then they had him constantly fear approaching the cave that made him seem weak. If we were intentionally softening him for redemption, where he breaks free and sacrifices himself, something that is similar to Darth Vader, that would work. But this amounted to nothing. It made the monster look less scary because we know too much. You don't humanize Pennywise or Michael Myers like we've seen in those movies because they are monsters. If they gave us enough baseline and let us explain everything, then the characters are just not as intimidating. We spent so much time in Vecna's mind, which is colorful and not non-threatening. After all that escape time, Max breaks out, contributing nothing to the story or the final confrontation. 11 could have just faced Vecna with the heroes because it was a pretty easy fight and only took around 3 minutes max. They also could have let Max die at season 4's end so we could actually feel something about the characters' deaths. But no, every major death gets immediately undone within a wink. They did it with Hopper in season 3, Max in season 4, 11 is season 5. Everyone is someone's favorite because they cannot kill them or lose their ship. The ending of season 5 left many viewers unsatisfied. Did it make you feel that way too? Tell us in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, do give us a sub and ring the bell icon for more deep dives into famous TV shows.